This is an RNZ podcast.
Hello there, welcome back to the Music 101 interview podcast. I'm Charlotte Ryan, and last week I had the opportunity to speak to one of my favourite singer-songwriters, American musician Bill Callahan. He's been writing music for many, many years, since the late 90s, under his own name, but before that under the name Smog. He has an incredibly distinctive baritone voice. His songs are quite melancholy, and his lyrics often sound like poems set to music. Last year, Bill Callahan toured his latest studio album, Reality. And whilst touring throughout America, they decided to record one of the live shows in Chicago. And the reason being, the venue was very special. Also, it was mid-tour, so not too green, but not too brown. And also, apparently Bill said the fact that the venue had nothing to do with Live Nation, that was another reason why he wanted to capture the magic. Anyway, the result, a brand new live album called Resuscitate that explores some of Bill Callahan's best-loved songs from his album Reality, but also from his full catalogue. I've been a long-time fan of Bill Callahan, and I was excited to speak to him. But I also was always intrigued with his connection to New Zealand, and specifically our musicians, including the wonderful Chris Knox. When Chris had his stroke back in 2009, Bill Callahan covered one of Chris's songs for the Stroke compilation. And the song that Bill covered was called Lapse, and he just took the song and created so much emotion with it. It was so beautiful. So before I even wanted to talk to Bill Callahan about the live album, I just had to touch base with him about the Chris Knox cover that he sang that had made such an impact. When I was walking to work this morning, I remembered you did this beautiful song on Chris Knox's Stroke album called Lapse. Mm-hmm. And I went back and listened to it, and it's one of my favourite tracks on that album, but also it's so beautiful that you contributed to Chris Knox's album, Stroke, because it was such a big time in our industry and such good support for him. But did you meet him? Was Chris Knox sort of, because he recorded, of course, on the 4-track like you started off, was that kind of how you connected with Chris Knox?
Yeah, actually, it was like 1994, maybe. There was a festival in Nijmegen in Holland. I think it was called Fast Forward or something like relating to tape. It was supposed to be a festival of mostly home recording artists. So I met him then, and we did a few shows together. I think that was just like a one-off, and then I came back a few years later and did more shows in Europe with Tall Dwarfs. And yeah, and then when I was in New Zealand, of course, he invited me to his house. And yeah, I've gotten to know Chris pretty well over the last 20 years or whatever.
Yeah. I've been really enjoying your new album, Resuscitate, recorded at a live show in Chicago. Sometimes when I listen to it, I forget that it's a live album. And I guess for me, I don't necessarily love live albums, but this one I do. Was there something that you did differently with the recording?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it was all recorded live, and it's a good recording, and we had a good Mark Nevers mixed it, who mixed Reality, and a lot of records that people love. And a lot of the versions on the live record are kind of trying to explode the songs into little bits, so they wouldn't be like verse, chorus, traditional arrangements. I've got interested in how noise or improvisational sounds can still kind of be a pop song or a rock song, I guess I'm really into that idea of bridging the two, because, I mean, I enjoy listening to improv music, but sometimes it gets a little tiring because there's not always a ground to stand on, which is a reason that I listen to it, because I like that kind of unstructured and floating and confused feeling that a lot of like free jazz gives me. But I also wanted to kind of combine that with a ghostly overarching structure so that it was somehow improv and structured at the same time.
Like creating boundaries around the improv or something.
Just reining it in, I guess. Like pushing it to the edge, like right when it starts to get too abstract, you rein it in and give some structure.
I love it. Are you a fan of live albums?
I am actually. I mean, I do tend to think that a lot of the times it's the best, especially with jazz, I think. Like, it's kind of supposed to be performed in front of an audience.
Yeah.
I mean, when I did the Rough Travel for a Rare Thing, which was live in Australia, and the guy that I was mixing that with was like, I can't believe you're not overdubbing anything on, because he said like everybody who makes a live record just fixes all the mistakes and beefs it up somehow. Especially like any mainstream artist, they call it a live record, but all they've really kept is the crowd cheering. They re-record everything else.
Yeah. I read that you wanted to capture these songs because the songs mutate. Once you initially write them, they then sort of mutate into something else, especially, I guess, when you're performing live. How do songs change? Is it sort of the speed and tempo, or is it the improvisation?
It's partially because I'm not much of a musician, so I often can't remember the tempo of the recorded version, so I just kind of go with what I'm feeling at that particular time. And yeah, I think it's mostly it's a version of hell. Me, I think, is to just play songs the same every time. I try to make it appropriate to where we are and how we're feeling. And, if it's a boisterous audience, then it might make us egg us on to play harder and louder. But if it's a quiet audience, then it might like make me think, oh, we can really get away with some really quiet and subtle things now. And so it's just circumstantial, I guess.
Have you been surprised at the success of Resuscitate?
I have, because I mean, I fully went into it knowing that live records just not many people care about them or buy them, or so. Yeah, I was surprised when Drag City said it's selling.
Yeah, and
selling well.
One thing that has always captured me is your lyrics. They're so vivid and so relatable and sometimes so funny. Do you sort of keep a black book of notes or sort of strange things that pop into your daily life? Or where do you find the inspiration for a new song?
The impetus for a song, which is the most important part, is just that one little spark that it might be a song title or an opening line. Once that happens, then we're off to the races. It's just like whatever the title or the first line is, I know that like the DNA of the whole song is in there, and I just need to kind of unravel it. Yeah, those things just kind of pop into my head.
Yeah.
And there's no really method to getting into that space, really. And also it is such it's an otherworldly state, I think, that just I don't remember writing songs that I've written. And sometimes I remember when a particular song title or something would pop into my head, but yeah, it's kind of like a dream, because it's really hard to remember your dreams unless you write it down. And I don't really know how I get there. It just seems to happen. And when it's not happening, it seems impossible that it ever happened and that it'll ever happen again. But I've been doing it so long, I trust that it will happen again sometime. I just need to wait.
Tell me about the song Keep Some Steady Friends Around. That song in particular has really captured people from Resuscitate. I don't know if you've heard that, but yeah, the streams for that particular song are crazy. Or where did that song come from?
It was originally on an album called Rain on Lens that I wrote when I was living in Chicago, and it was kind of a dark time. It was like Twin Towers had fallen, and we were at war with Afghanistan, a really stupid war. Not that all wars aren't stupid, but I mean, we're at war all the time, but it doesn't even seem to affect the climate of people. But that I did a tour around then, and like nobody was even showing up to the shows. Like no one even wanted to go out, and It also wasn't a very popular record for some reason, but that song is on there, and I think maybe it is the ray of light on that set of songs, you know. It just seemed necessary to put a little hope in the record.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you talk about, yeah, when you wrote it and what was going on in the world, because I feel like it really is having a second life.
Yeah, I'm feeling that same weight I did back then. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Do you ever consciously sing about politics or ever sort of want to convey certain messages in your songs? Is that something that you've ever wanted to do as a songwriter?
Well, I mean, I've always the political songs I like the most are always like a lot of reggae songs. It might be about feeling good, but it's kind of a protest.
Yeah.
I always hear those songs about, even just if they're about like, let's go dancing and drinking, you know, that's to me, that's a political song in a way, because it's just saying like, screw the government, you know, let's have fun. So everything is kind of political
Yeah.
in that way, because it's just about your outlook on life and how you're going to live.
You've done very well at keeping, and it sounds like it's been quite a conscious thing, of keeping quite a low public profile. There's a lot of artists at the moment talking about the need of pushing their music through social media, but it doesn't feel like you do that or even want to do that. Do you ever feel the pressure to sort of keep that balance of still wanting to sell records but not wanting to give too much of yourself?
Well, I mean, I'm old school, you know. When I came up, I was just selling records, you know, that I pressed myself, and then records that Drag City pressed. And so, I mean, I had a deep roots of selling a physical product without this thing called social media that didn't exist. And that is just the way I learned how to work and try to get people to maybe listen to my record. And I think also what goes along with me putting those roots deep for 20 years without social media is I also have a following and fans who don't care about, they don't want me to, they're not desiring me to like put a picture of my face up every 3 days and on Instagram. And it's not just me, and you know, I have an audience that has been there with me for all this time, and there's definitely a clash of generations. Sometimes if a show isn't selling as fast as the promoter wishes it would, then, you know, they say, oh, could you like say something on social media? But I don't, because I know that it doesn't work. You know, it might work for some people, but that is part of their trajectory, you know, and it's just not like that for me. And I don't think people use it very well, you know. Sometimes I think I should get on there and like show them how it's done.
You've mentioned pop music a few times. Do you listen to pop music?
My son finally, thankfully, got into Eminem, who I like, and it's really fun to see him kind of understand. All of a sudden, he gets the concept of an album and good albums and bad albums and good tracks and bad tracks and all that stuff. I don't mind him playing that in the car when we're going somewhere. But I usually check everybody out. Like Billie Eilish is great, and Charlie XCX. There's definitely stuff that rises above all the rest, in my opinion. But I listen to everything.
Mm.
A lot of electro noise music, and recently remembered how great Genesis is or was. So I've been listening to a lot of prog.
Amazing.
I listen to everything really.
Bill, you've released two albums, you know, I mean, you constantly are working on music. What is the plan for the rest of this year and next year? Will you get back out on the road? Is that something you sort of crave to do, you know, touring internationally, I mean?
Yeah, I'm doing some shows in Europe, some solo shows. I was thinking about trying to not write any songs for a while, just to see what happens.
Mm. Will that be hard?
Well, no, got plenty to do around the house. I just want to, as an experiment, like not try to rush into the next record. And I'm working on a co-writing some songs with somebody I'm not at liberty to mention at the present time. That's been really fun to write for somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, once that's done, I'm just gonna see what happens if I don't write any songs.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued to know
What's the worst that could happen?
Combustion? There's all this music in you that just wants to explode out of you.
I guess after Reality came out, I kind of got it was kind of disappointing, like just the cycle now of how nobody, even if it's a huge, like Kanye or something, and they put out a record and then everyone's talking about it for a day, and then the next day they never mention it again. And I kind of really felt that with Reality.
Yeah. I wonder if it was the time, because I think I observed that as well. I almost feel like Resuscitate has had more attention than Reality, but maybe that's post-COVID. Everyone's brains were a bit melted or something.
Definitely could be it. Everyone's in PTSD now from all of that.
Yeah. All right, well, good luck not writing, and I can't wait to see what happens next. Thanks.
Nice to talk to you.
That wraps up another Music 101 interview podcast. I was speaking with Bill Callahan for RNZ National. I spoke to him last week for Music 101, and yes, you would have heard, he's very thoughtful, very considered, just like his music. I was speaking to him about his brand new album, Resuscitate! Go and listen to it, especially the Friends Come Around song. I love it so much. But also, while you're there, go and listen to his most recent studio album, Reality. So I'm on the radio each Saturday afternoon on RNZ National from 1 p.m. Tune in. And if you like this podcast and if you like music interviews and discovering new music, make sure you follow the Music 101 interview podcast here on the platform that you're listening to. If you want to get in touch with us at any stage, music101@rnz.co.nz is our email. But until next time, take care.